the stocking, hands following her into the bathroom. Yeah, we were saying it's kind of a lot of this is him trying to understand where babies come from. Initially, he thought the Widdler. Now it seems to be the bottom, Fruitland, which weirdly enough, they then go on to tell him like later on when they
You-
finally um what word what word do they use in this? When they finally anyway, tell him like how babies are made and they give the analogy of look.
Is it? Do
Yeah,
they?
yeah. The dad says we told him that the baby is in the mother's stomach and is pressed out like lump.
Ah, interesting. So they already like really pick up on what he's using.
Yeah, yeah. I think we'll get to it later, but yeah, for me it was the like I'd love for you actually to look at it in German because the pressed out part I thought was quite almost poetic. I don't know, pressed out.
Ah, I can look at it in German.
Yeah, because and it really is true. Like it's, I mean, to be honest, the action is very similar, childbirth and
I
shitting.
mean, this is what Lacan tells us, like babies get born between piss and shit, and that's like true. I mean,
Yes. Okay, right. Sorry, all the stuff is coming back to me. I hope I've written some good notes somewhere. I just wrote one thing down that the shit podcast made me think about. Oh, let me see. Yeah, I did think. So, what have I written here? Okay, I don't know if it's from the podcast or something else that I've saved, and I'll send it to you. I think it was Jacques Alon Miller
mhm.
describing, I think, obsessives and the connection between like um what do they oh my god like the anal stage or something like this. And it was really well described. I can find it actually if we need to, but he said that there is this pleasure in the parent is demanding something of you, and in the podcast they were saying like shit is the first gift that you give to your parents.
Mhm.
But this extended it by saying the obsessive really enjoys potentially this demand from the parent and keeps them waiting. And there's something pure about this waiting time when you're demanding and I've not given to you yet. It's like this finally they have some control over the parent.
Yeah, I mean, sort of this is the, you have the oral stage where sort of like the parent is giving something to you, and then sort of, as Lacan tells us, sort of with anorexia, it's sort of like, no, I'm not taking it, in a certain sense, it's, well, I'm not taking it in, and in another sense is, I am taking in nothing. So I'm sort of eating the nothing. Um, and sort of in the anal stage, sort of it is reversed. It is like I'm not giving something out or up. Like the parents sort of the anal stage is much more connected to a demand by another rather than sort of like a demand from you to another, which sort of is the maybe like more crying of the oral stage of the baby.
But it's true that both like anorexia and this anal retentiveness, it is like you're like holding the parent's demand, like it's like frozen there.
Yeah.
And you can see how that would be quite enjoyable. And it's like not gonna give you what you want after having, 2 or 3 years of having to do everything that they say.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think there is a lot of power in this. I think, but still, I guess for Hans, it seems to be more trying to understand, yeah, how babies are born. And like you said, were you going to say more about what Lacan says when we're born between piss and shit?
I think I just also like heard that in a podcast. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah,
Katie
yeah.
Johnson one. Um, and I was just, I was saying this because um, like this isn't sort of I think there's well, I was just saying that because there's a truth to thinking like babies sort of get born like shit, because they usually do get born with shit. Like, so yeah, so the whole, like, I don't know, something getting pressed out part, like it's not incorrect.
I'm still thinking about the solution at the end, and the fact that he unscrews his bottom. I don't know, like, just does it relate to this, the childbirth? I don't know how it would, but I still think it's strange. I still want to explain it better. So
I definitely see how sort of what we read last time is a bit like unfulfilling, in the sense that sort of the really this part that we read last time, it's like it's very difficult. Like, okay, I see how sort of it is difficult maybe also to follow the things that I say about it, because I already know the end. Sort of I am looking here already for stuff that I encounter in the end again. But sort of if you haven't read the end, then it's like, I guess it seems like a bit, it's hard to find what, or like it's hard to see evidence for what I'm pointing out, because here there's not the evidence sort of yet. I do have another, like the last conversation got me thinking about sort of the blackness and whiteness.
yes, yeah, that came up with the drawers and something else.
Yeah, this is page 43, sort of when
I see.
when Hans says, well, I was disgusted by the yellow lady drawers. And sort of the dad says, why? Because they're yellow and they remind you of Lumpf or Whittle. And then Hans says, Lumpf isn't yellow, it's white or black. And this just struck me because, like, shit obviously isn't white or black. And then immediately afterwards, he says, like, I say, is it easy to do Lumpf if you eat cheese? So you have sort of both the connection of like eating and shitting. Like, is it easier to shit if you've eaten before, which also makes sense with the blackness that sort of first comes up with the harness of the horse in front of the mouth, which is black.
Yeah.
So this is where this sort of this relation to blackness sort of originates from, like the black leather cloth. Is it cloth? The black leather in front of the horse's mouth. Yeah, so I think there is some, this is again sort of an over interpretation by me here, but sort of we do find Hans saying things are white quite fondly. Like he says that, like, oh, daddy, you're like a white horse. And then he will say, oh, like Hannah, she was so white when she was born.
White and lovely.
Yeah, white and lovely. And like he's disgusted by blackness. Mostly like black leather, black cloth, black clothes, black, yeah.
And black shit.
Yeah, but sort of he says sort of shit is white or black.
Okay, true. Okay, yeah. Okay.
And sort of for me, sort of this sort of does kind of encapsulate sort of also the thing that is maybe so unsatisfying about reading this, and the stuff that is also so difficult to grasp here, because sort of it is quite, everything is quite ambivalent, but sort of I think, also for Hans himself, like sort of this blackness and whiteness thing, even though it doesn't tell us super much, it is kind of a way to like articulate that ambivalence that he also sort of is experiencing towards the fetish object. Like he is disgusted by it. He is sort of interested in it. He wants to look. He doesn't want to look. And you have sort of weirdly this very sort of philosophical. I mean, I haven't read the book, but sort of the book Homo Sacra by Agamben sort of focuses on sort of the connection between the well, Sacra sort of both means holy and waste. Sort of it is both both sort of the holiness and the shit of something, or like as Freud says, something like the connection between gold and shit.
Mhm.
Like the thing that is worth the most and sort of the thing that is worth the least. And I don't know, I find like in this, I was really wondering a lot, like what is it with the whiteness and blackness in Hans' speech? And sort of this seems to be kind of like, blackness is disgusting, and sort of the whiteness, like more like hailed, more like idealized something. So there seems to be sort of this relation kind of going on there to me.
I think that's a really good point. I think no matter, I wish I knew more, but no matter what school of psychoanalysis or even psychology, they'll have some kind of theory, good object, bad object, etc. And from my naive knowledge, it kind of seems like you're supposed to move into a more neutral position because it's true, like, you love your mother a lot, and the inverse of that is disgust, and it's quite, and you are scared at, it's like this overwhelming feeling that we've been speaking about with Hans and his mother, and how does he navigate it. So I think that does make sense that there would be the two sides.
Yeah, sort of this is also, I mean, there's just this always sort of like, and this we'll get to this. He will be even more ambivalent, like when we like go further now. But sort of he does very like he really uses a lot of oppositions, like horses with cards, horses without cards, blackness, whiteness, inside, outside. He will come like death, life. Like he's really trying to grip, like to get a yeah and okay, sort of this is just sort of what I was trying to focus on also, like because we have these oppositions, these that Hans makes, where like here's cool, here's not cool. And then sort of we have sort of really just him articulating something like, okay, shit is white or black, sort of the thing that I'm interesting sort of literally is black and white, in the sense of um, um, not like black and white thinking, but sort of black and white precise in the sense of like it is gray together, like it is both black and white. It's not either or.
Okay, yeah, yeah. But at the same time, he's not found a neutral ground, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And then sort of I don't remember if we talked about this last time, but there is sort of Hans, I don't know, he articulates when he sort of got his nonsense, when he got his phobia, I think at like 2 or 3 different points. And I think this is maybe the last point that he articulates. And he says, this is the second page of page 46. The dad asks, used you used to play horses with the children at Gmunden? And Hans says, yes, I think that's how I got the nonsense. And then he asks, who was the horse? I was, and Bertha was the coachman. Okay. And then he says, further down, I used you often to play at horses? Used you often to play at horses? Does that sentence make any sense to you?
I used to often play. Is that what it says? I can't.
No, this is I, the father.
Oh, used you to play. Yeah, it's a bit bad.
This is probably like a very, very bad translation. So did you play horses a lot?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then Hans says, very often, Fritzl once was the horse too, and Franzl the coachman. Fritzl ran ever so fast, and all at once he hit his foot on a stone and bled. So, yeah, so we have, and then sort of he continues saying, then the dad sort of asks, and this is when you got the nonsense? And Hans says, well, because they kept saying cause of the horse, and he put a stress on the cause. Yeah, and sort of in German, this is Wegen and Wagen, like Wegen der Pferde. and wägende Pferde is what he's afraid of, that is the carts, and wegende Pferde is cause of the horses. So there is something, this sort of phonetical interest that sort of that Freud really picks up upon in his note on this, which the father sort of misses. But sort of as such, I think this is interesting. Like he says, I got the nonsense at Gmunden, which he didn't say before. Like before he said, I got it when I was out with mommy in Schönbrunn, and a horse fell down. And here he says, well, it was before that when I was Gmunden playing with the other children, and Franzel, his friend, like hit his foot on a stone and started bleeding. This is sort of, I think, interesting in the sense that the dad points out that sort of Hans sort of does have a lot of increased affection towards his mother already in Gmunden, precisely sort of at the time when the dad is traveling a lot and isn't a lot there in Gmunden, which is, I'm not sure if Hannah is, I think at that point Hannah is born already. Like,
Yeah, they later on it says she's been to Gmunden twice, one at 8 months, and obviously I guess one at a year and a half. So
yeah.
I'm gonna assume she's 8 months old there.
Yeah.
So small, yeah.
Right. So sort of basically already after sort of the question of like, you know, after when Hans is 3.5 years old, and like he starts at 3.5, sort of these two big moments happen. Like he is threatened by the mother, like to cut the whittler off, and he's getting a younger sister. And sort of at 3.5 is really the sort of the point where he's starting to ask all these questions about the whittler.
Can I just double check? Because they also were at Gmunden when she was pregnant with Hannah.
Yeah, this is why I was thinking right now. Sort of this is a bit like ambivalent which time he now means when they were in Gmunden. But sort of I think he means like just sort of the way I mean, not the way I remember it, this is the way the father told us. Like they were Gmunden, Hans started to be like very affectionate towards his mom. Dad wasn't there, and sort of then they got back to Vienna, and then sort of Hans really started to be afraid of horses, and they started to wonder, well, what is going on? And then sort of Hans started to say eventually, well, after he went out with the mother, was because I'm afraid of the horses. Wegen der Pferde, maybe.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think it makes sense that it would be after Hannah was born, because then it's just everything is culminating at this point. Yeah. Do you want to say anything more about Because of the Horse? I just want to speak about Fritzl a bit, but I don't want to interrupt you.
Because of the horse, no, I think that's Freud tells us sort of the father asks too many questions, and sort of that there isn't anything more to get out of it than this phonetical connection. And I think he's right there. So
I think I just feel like a lot is happening at this time for Hans. And I don't know, like I feel like something happened with Fritzl. I don't like, maybe because Fritzl was 12 years old. Fritzl's older. Hans was super fond of Fritzl. And when asked who's your favorite girl, Hans says Fritzl. And here it says like Fritzl was the horse once too. Only once, actually. I don't know, like, yeah, to me, it's just like, I'm trying to read into things when I don't know what's happened, but I don't know if he, like, yeah, just was looking up to Fritzl, just like he was looking up to his mother. And then it just really bothered him when Fritzl fell. I don't know, is it just scary, him seeing this vulnerability in someone else?
Yeah, I think I want to interpret something into this too. And I don't think it's wrong, but I don't really I don't really. I used to put more emphasis on this fact that sort of that because Lacan tells us, well, it's not so much about sort of hitting the foot that sort of is concerning for Hans, but sort of the nakedness. This is later on when he says like he wants Daddy to be like naked and like hit his foot or something. And sort of this is when I was like, no, thinking like, no, this is already like I think this is not that is like this sort of nakedness. It is a relation to like hitting your foot and bleeding. So but I'm not sure, like if you have an idea how to like properly interpret this and like maybe we can just like remember it right now and like see later on how if we can pick it up again, if we can like draw a relation. To me it's a bit like yeah, I'm not sure which relation to draw.
Yeah, yeah, I know, me either. This is the hardest part. Like, what is the significance of Fritzl falling? And then it comes up, yeah, importantly again when he's speaking to the dad, maybe quite soon, saying, oh, you know, or did we already cover that bit when he said, yeah, you should fall and then I can be quite alone with my brother? Okay. All right. Well, we can keep going. Yeah. So yeah, just to summarize a little bit though.
Yeah.
I feel like the questions that he has: where do babies come from? How do they get there? How do they come out? So how do they get there could be eating. How do they come out could be shitting. But then it's really strange that that would all contain a body. That makes sense. But then the answer to the question, where do babies come from? You think you would say the mother's stomach, but he is always focusing on the boxes.
The boxes this is a misinterpretation by Freud. Like he tells us Hans is interested, like he says like the boxes are the stomach, and that's not true. Like the box is the place where the babies are before they are inserted into the stomach for Hans.
Yes. Okay, no, I think that's a really good thing to clarify. And that is the part he really doesn't know because no one has told him the role of the father, like that's where they come from. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The next thing, well, the next thing that I sort of marked was the bath stuff.
I agree. Yep, the bath stuff. Yep.
Yeah. So this is the second page of page 50. Is it though?
Is it? Is that 50?
I mean, no. He just says like I saw Hannah's Whittler when she was in the bath. This isn't it.
Yeah, I think all of that. I haven't underlined anything. I think it's all kind of the same stuff that we've spoken about. Yeah, just about him following his mom into the toilet and him talking about Whittlers.
Yeah, then maybe one thing before the bath. This is page 51. This is sort of him clarifying what disgusts him about the drawers, the black drawers. He says, only when I saw the black ones, when that is like the answer to the question when you were disgusted when you saw mommy's drawers. And he says, only when I saw the black ones. When she bought them, then I spat. I don't spit when she puts her drawers on or takes them off. I spit because the black drawers are like lymph and the yellow ones are like whittle. Okay, the yellow ones are like whittle. He just takes it up from the dad. Like at first he says, well, what, like yellow isn't, that's not important to me. Here he says, okay, yeah, they like whittle. And then I think I've got to whittle. When mommy has her drawers on, I don't see them. She got her clothes over them. And then dad asks, and when she takes off her clothes, I don't spit then either. But when her drawers are new, they look like lymph. I think this is very interesting as in the sense of this is a fetishization of sort of these drawers. Like they are not interesting to me when they're on mom. It's not about sort of what they sort of, it's not sort of that I'm disgusted that I can't see sort of what is beneath them when they're on mom, but sort of they are disgusting to me as new, as sort of the sort of unworn and sort of just like for itself. They sort of are disgusting to me for themselves, not so much the relation they sort of have to the relation they have when they're on the mom, which I think is interesting because sort of that's really like separating the thing from its function, right? Because like black drawers are like you put them on. Yeah, so I just thought this was sort of an this is sort of the first time where I really said, okay, like this is like the fetish objects, as sort of Lacan tells us.
Yes, but Lacan does also say, because he finds it disgusting when they are an object on their own and themselves, that means he is actually rejecting them as a fetish object.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure he says that, yeah, because fuck, I hate this because you can really paint this any way that you want. But fuck, I don't know, because I know you could also say,
yeah, no, it makes sense. Like he said, sort of if he wanted to just like have him as a fetish object, then sort of he would just like stop asking sort of the question there. But sort of okay, he does get sort of disgusted by it, sort of in the sense of disgust, like being maybe like a sign for repression. And no, I see what you're saying. This is what Lacan is telling us. I just found the separatedness interesting. Like it's only when they're separated, it's only when they're new, sort of when they are untouched, unworn, that Hans has a reaction to them.
it really is on the edge, and maybe this is like the point of Lacan, like spending a whole seminar edging the fact that Hans is a fetishist and then kind of maybe isn't in the end, because I guess it really is on the edge here. Because yeah, it's true, let me just forget the lack in the mother and just put it all in the drawers. That's my solution. I think it is complicated. The solution could be the drawers by themselves, or it could be the drawers on the mother covering up the absence. So I think it's true. You could take a number of ways still to a fetishistic solution. But ultimately he doesn't. But I do think Lacan does say the fact that he finds them disgusting off. It's him like rejecting the solution.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is what Lacan is saying. It's also like I have a bit of a trouble of keeping in mind what the fetish object really is. When I think of fetish object, I always think of this one scene that I saw in a series when I was like 13. It's a series called 6 Feet Under.
Oh yeah, I never watched it. Okay.
Fitting title for what I'm about to tell, because like it's about a family who does like I don't know what the term is called, but sort of they manage funerals and they deal with like dead bodies, and sort of then they get the dead bodies, they like adjust them properly, and then sort of they hold the funeral, and they have this teenage daughter who was like making out with a guy at their school, and like he has a foot fetish, and like he's like, can you suck my toes? And then she's like, okay, she sucks his toes. And then he tells around in the whole school, and like everybody's making fun of her like for sucking toes, like, oh, you're the toe sucker, whatever. And like she like takes the foot of a dead body and puts it into his drawer, into his locker. And like he finds the foot in his locker, is like, terrified, like, okay, the police come, whatever. But sort of, I just found that to be like, I don't know, this is such a violent, but also like in its violent aggressivity, it's kind of beautiful, like to be like, okay, like you're interested in this, and then you like fuck me over with it. Okay, you know what? Take it, like take the fucking foot you care so much about.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like perfect revenge.
yeah. Okay, so but maybe in this scene I'm missing something that is precisely that sort of um the fetish object is like Lacan tells us this the whole time. It is disavowed, like sort of the fetishist does know that sort of the object doesn't really exist. It's a I know very well, but nonetheless, I'm going to treat it as if sort of this was the real thing. And Julian de Madeira sort of oftentimes gives us this image, literally, of like the naked pornographic image of the wall of like a I don't know of a man that sort of is right there. Right there is sort of the naked woman, and he says like, well, sort of this right there-ness is sort of the way to veil something. This is sort of what I was just reminded when he says, well, I only care about them sort of when they're not on. I don't know. I cannot explain it further.
Sorry, I love this subject. Yeah, I think the fetishist object is really confusing because I think it's a sliding scale, and it's true they always know, but it involves this object. Sometimes they incorporate this object into play with another human, like, oh my God, please wear those shoes while I fuck you. Or they could just have the shoe. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there is this scale. Yeah, I think the poster is a good one. I was reading this book, and this girl was like drawing on a memory when she was young of her dad having this poster, right? The poster of like the Playboy girl. And the girl like asked her dad, like, do you like her? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, do you want to meet her? And he's like, God, no, she's like a dumb blonde. And her being so confused by this because she was like, what? Like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
It is that, right? This kind of disavow, like this, let me control this like very scary relationship. And it's like, I have control of you, you're the poster on the wall, but oh my God, I don't want to meet you. Like, okay, I have one tiny thing. This is so before we move on to the bath, which I think is better. So it does mention that he's really scared of the toilet flushing.
Yeah.
I had this too when I was younger. I don't.
It's good. Yeah. Tell me, please.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm just thinking, like, so he also, the dad says, is it because it makes a row when you pull the plug? And this is the same word used for the horse falling, making a row with his feet. And to be honest, like for me, it was the same. Like the noise was so violent. I don't know what it is. Maybe you think you're just going to be taken away with it. This kind of, again, overwhelming feeling I keep talking about. I did notice, it may be nothing, but the second page of 52, it says that he's actually scared of the toilet at Lens. Am I saying that right?
This is lines, but yeah.
And is that where the grandma lives?
Yeah.
So I again, this is we're trying to find, we know the solution of Lacan, which is this doubling of the mother by having a mother and a grandmother that we don't really understand. But I don't know if the toilet is like this fear of being like taken up and taken away with the flush. It's interesting that he experiences this at his grandma's house as well, but I think it's a little bit of a reach. But
no, I think actually this is, it took me like 5 readings to get there, but sort of what is the connection between like the bath and the toilet thing? It is water being flushed away. Sort of he says, well, as you just sort of said, it makes a row when you pull the plug. And again, like this is sort of this is perfectly sort of ambivalent as sort of everything like before here was already, where he says, I don't want to, like Hans sort of always says, I don't want to go into the toilet at Lines because there the noise of the flush is like so loud. And then he says, when I'm at home, there's a loud row from the toilet, and when there's a loud row at home, I want to stay in. But when there's a loose one, like not so loud row, then I want to go out. So it's exactly reversed than in lines. So in lines, he doesn't want to go in because it's too loud. And like at home, he wants to stay in because it's loud. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And you can really sort of see here sort of precisely sort of the ambivalence, like it is black and white sort of at the same time. And yeah, so I think, and sort of on here the second page of 52, there is, let me check. Yeah. There is I think a very nice interpretation by the father, right before like Freud comments on it. Yeah, Hans says, I don't know, a loud row sounds as though you were doing a lump. A big row reminds me of lump and a little one of whittle. The dad says, I say, wasn't the bus horse the same color as a lump? According to his account, it has been black. And Hans is very much struck by it and says, yes. I think sort of this is a really good interpretation by the father of like connecting the blackness of a horse Hans was afraid of to sort of the lump in there. I think this is sort of, this is quite a good interpretation. And then sort of, I think really Freud misses the point afterwards when he says like, I must point out that sort of the father is really asking the wrong questions here, because like this right here is, I think it's a very good interpretation by the dad. And like, yeah, so I don't think sort of that the dad asking about the closet, not closet. What's how do you say this? Toilet. I just say toilet.
Yeah, toilet. Yeah. Yeah. Water closet. I always forget that that's even what WC stands for. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, with the black, like, is this just, again, to not look too much into it, but it is like this sliding of the signifier, and it was horses, and the black has shifted and it encompasses the lymph, which is quite nice because the lymph really does seem to be getting closer to this question of where do babies come from. So it's like this sliding and it's all coming together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like it's really hard to pin down, but it is as hard to pin down as the horses to pin down. And that's precisely because like it's not really supposed to be pinned down in the sense of like it's an empty signifier of and like it gets reused and sort of everything sort of gets transported into it. And yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And then sort of we come to no, it's not like after this interpretation, this is sort of after this interpretation on April 11th, Hans has this dream when he says, Daddy, I thought something. I was in the bath and the plumber came and unscrewed it. Then he took a bigger borer and stuck it into my stomach. Okay, so very short and precise, like thought or dream. What do you make of it?
Now I'm thinking about the bath. It's true. And sorry, it's hard to not jump ahead too much, but he not only does he have the fear of the flushing, but he has the fear of big baths. He likes small baths and he often likes to kneel or stand in them. And yeah, I guess it does seem one easy analogy would be like the womb, right? And being flushed out as well. But also just being, like overtake, like, I don't know, he's obsessed with where babies come from because it also will tell him what will happen to him as well. And yeah, am I just going to be thrown out kind of like the birth, but in another way? So sorry if I'm like jumping ahead a little bit because I'm just thinking about the fact he's in a bath, this scary place, and the plumber came and unscrewed it. So I don't know what that part means actually. Why is the plumber unscrewing the bath? Like, is that him not having control? Is that...
Yeah, no, this is, I think sort of this dream is relevant for the reason that sort of he really sort of get sort of the direct sort of connection from the question of asking about shit as like asking about like how does something get into the stomach? Sort of, there's someone and comes and drills into the stomach. Yeah, so it's also interesting that sort of here, sort of what is unscrewed is the bath itself. I'm not super sure what to make of this, but sort of you see how I think we start to see how something that was more rigid for Hans or more like undifferentiated by Hans starts to become a bit like more mediatable, more this is sort of it starts. This is sort of the start of the third sort of the third part where sort of things become unpluggable, unscrewable. Yeah, like you can take things off and put them on again. Sort of here, so we have like the little start for that, where like somebody comes and unscrews the bath.
Actually, it's quite beautiful if you think about it, because as I said, the bath was a location of anxiety for him. And it's a nice way to view it. It's almost as if like the bath is his world, which is quite unstable and he doesn't understand it and he doesn't want to be thrown out of it. And it's like, okay, I can't really change the world, but I can like do something with it, like unscrew the world and like move it around. I don't know. It's like you're zooming out of the situation and finding another layer to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think also relevant then is that he has this other thought or dream where he says, that is him and the dad, were traveling in the train to Gmunden. In the station, we put on our clothes, but we couldn't get it done in time. And the train carried us on. Sort of, there is this fantasy of like not being able to like, before he always says, well, if I get like transported away, I can always come back. There's no problem of coming back. And like here, sort of again, it's only like the first step, but sort of, okay, I'm traveling with dad, and sort of we aren't able to like get up in time. Like we passed the stop. Yeah. So I think sort of that's kind of fitting that these sort of two thoughts or dreams sort of are together.
Yeah, definitely this like lack of control over his surroundings and being carried off, right?
Yeah.
Carried off by the train, carried off in the bath, by the flushing. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So then sort of he says, well, yeah, he is afraid of yeah, he says that asks, what does the road that the horse makes remind you of? And he says, like, it is when sort of Lum falls into the chamber. And then Freud gives us interpretation, well, sort of the horse cart is the fear of the heavily loaded stomach. And yeah, I think it's more like the question of like, where was the baby before the stomach, before it was in the stomach? And also like, how does it get into the stomach? And then, right, like on the next day, which was the same day, I don't know if this is interpreted, like if we should interpret this, but sort of I think this is the only time that the dad like marks the same day twice. Yeah, so he is afraid of like going into the big bath, as you told us, because he's afraid of falling into the bath. And yeah, I noticed like I noted like, is he afraid of falling? Is he afraid of disappearing like a piece of shit in the toilet? Like, is he afraid of getting flushed away? And sort of fear is there sort of in the big bath, but not in a small bath, where sort of maybe there's no problem of being flushed away.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like yeah, I think later on it's talking about again the significance of the bath. Like the bath like holds the baby just like a box holds a baby. All of these compartments hold babies and yeah, can, especially with the bath, be flushed away. Kind of, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, take the baby away. And it's interesting that, and it's just interesting that the bath holds the baby and like the solution somehow is that Hans finds his power, finds the phallus, whatever, like through maybe having like his own children. I'm really trying here to like bring it all together.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think, yeah, I'm constantly like, I'm always telling you a story about what I think is going on, but I'm like constantly like thinking about like what is really going on, and I oftentimes, I don't really have a clue here. I think sort of the concept of growth is really sort of still in the foreground the whole time here, and sort of like smallness and bigness is sort of like sort of connected by the concept of growth. Like there is, you know, it is small and it will grow and will get big, and I think sort of this idea or this concept sort of is inadequate, and here we really see Hans being able to like step one step further in going into another direction, which isn't so rigid as just like a scale from small to big.
Yeah. There is this like almost third dimension with the unscrewing.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that as well as the unscrewing of a bath which holds a baby potentially, there is also him having this drill maybe bored into his stomach. Again, like it just feels a lot about him having babies potentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Let's carry
on. Maybe to April 13th, just on page 55. I think, yeah, then sort of it's interesting, sort of Hans really starts to use sort of Lumpf as a way more generalized term. Like he sees a piece of liver in a soup and then claims, ugh, a Lumpf.
Yeah, it's becoming just a game now.
But just becoming a term for disgusting.
Yeah, true. And liver is disgusting. So
yeah. And then in the evening, the wife tells Dad that Hans has been on the balcony and had said, I thought to myself, Hannah was on the balcony and fell down off it. The dad and the mom and Freud sort of interpret this as well, there's a death wish, like a wish from Hans for Hannah to die. I think it's much more Hannah falling like a piece of shit is falling. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean everything he's talking about is about falling, horses falling, shit falling, Hannah falling. Yeah.
And like he sort of makes her perform the fall that he's questioning sort of the whole time. Like in his mind, like it's not so much about him throwing her off the balcony. It's more like seeing where the shit falls to. Like where does the shit end up when it like gets flushed away? What happens when the child falls off the balcony?
And is like, why is this? Is this because like Hans is experiencing a fall? Like, or can we not link it too directly to anything?
I think we can say that, but sort of we have to say it more like for us. Like I'm not sure if sort of Hans is like, I'm pretty sure that this isn't. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I don't think sort of. I don't want to speculate sort of that Hans is saying like he is the one who's falling. I think in a certain sense that is the correct interpretation. We have made that interpretation sort of before, but like, is it? Yeah, like what? I think that's quite a like rich conceptual array. Like I've fallen out of a relation, something like this. Yeah. I'm not sure if you can truly attribute this to Hans, although it does really encapsulate what is happening. Like it's not wrong. It's just, yeah, I don't know if it is his really.
Yeah. Okay.
And then sort of this is what I wanted to make sort of the second big quilting point, but like here we have like the April 14th, and the dad tells us the theme of Hannah is upmost.
Yes. Yes.
And he says Hans has already several times expressed a wish that the stork would bring no more babies, and that we should pay him money not to bring any more out of the big box where babies are. Hannah screams such a lot, he says, that it is a nuisance to him. And yeah, whatever. So just sort of I think really like the point finally, like, you know, he says, well, where like the stork brought us Hannah from the box where the babies are. Like sort of this is, I think, very relevant, because now we can really like see what I've been like telling like now for like, I don't know, how long are we doing this? 3 or 4 hours? Like it is sort of the question of like, here really comes in, like it is the question of like, where does the baby come from? And for him, it is from the box where they are before him.
Yeah.
As sort of is really prepared by Freud's myth that he gives Hans, like, I knew that before you were in this world, that a little Hans would come and like be fond of his mom and like be angry towards his dad. So this is really sort of prepared, articulated by Freud himself, this question. Which is interesting then that he sort of really sort of misses to see it.
Do you think Freud planted that seed, or that Hans was considering this before?
We can definitely say that sort of what Freud says at least very much confirmed was Hans was already thinking himself. But sort of it is very important, like for humans in general, but especially for children, to like tell them things, even though maybe you suspect them already of knowing what you already tell them. Like it's very important to like articulate something. This is what like this is what makes also something symbolic, right? Sort of you articulate a certain lawfulness to something which isn't there maybe if it's only interpreted by the subject. I just watched again the video of this guy on YouTube who makes these Lacan videos, Sublime and Sublimity, no, Singularity and Sublimity. And like he gave us this really nice example of like the relation he has to his own daughter, where he says like they oftentimes when they go to when she goes to bed, they watch a series together, and sometimes they don't watch it because like the day has progressed too far and like it's too late, and like he has in mind and sort of a time to when to like if they're ready before then they could watch the show. If they're not ready, they cannot watch the show. And like he observed his daughter getting that is 8 years old, and that when they made the video, his daughter observing him drinking a glass of water and getting anxious, sort of that they wouldn't be able to watch the show together. And then he realized, oh, I usually sort of drink water like before we watch the show, and sort of we weren't ready yet. And she like got like scared that sort of the time has passed to watch the show. But sort of I never articulated to her what is the actual time in my head that has to be passed or not passed in order to watch the show. And then he said, well, I sort of then, you know, made it symbolic, articulated what is the law that sort of I'm following, basically, till when we can watch the show. That is, I don't know, whatever it's, if it is before 8 p.m. or after 8 p.m. You see sort of the difference between like, I see the action of someone and basically can like explain to myself what is like, okay, when he drinks the water, then sort of probably the time has passed. And like someone telling me well, it is 8 p.m. And like, there's a general law that sort of I am following. It's not just my behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Damn. It's so simple. And I think we come across this problem a lot. Like, I, of course, think to like when potentially you're starting a friendship or a relationship with someone, there's so much unsaid and people have their own like schemas and stuff. But it's so horrible when you don't know. And you're really trying desperately to figure it out. And then it's such a simple thing. So yeah, the articulation completely transforms your experience. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what people like. This is sort of the law, basically, sort of that people tell you about relationships. It's like, it's all about communication. And sort of this is what that means. It's about making things symbolic, like articulating what is going on. So in order for the other not just to be left wondering, which is always like part of, sort of desire in the end cannot fully be explained, but sort of that is giving a framework to desire that otherwise you would have to make up a phobia for in order to explain it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So.
Well, this does lead on to, I think, at this part in the text, Hans is going crazy with his own stories. Like this law has not been instated, and he knows he's just coming up with wild stories. They get wilder and wilder, and he's basically joking with his dad. I mean, Freud thinks he's actually poking the dad, being like, I know what you're telling me isn't true. I know the stalk isn't true. But he has nothing else. So that's all he's like almost throwing out his theories. But at this point, he's all joking. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe sort of this is still like page, it's page 56, but sort of the second page already in the third section. I think there is something very interesting in Hans asking, like the dad says, once he knocked on the pavement with his stick and said, I say, is there a man underneath, someone buried, or is that only in the cemetery? And the dad said, so he's occupied not only with the riddle of life, but with the riddle of death. And I think, again, this strikes something very, very relevant in Hans's thinking. Is like he's asking basically like, are there people in boxes buried here? Like, this is so interesting that sort of there is again like as sort of with the black and white, and there's now again like this connection between like these two opposites basically, or maybe they're not opposites, but sort of these dualistic terms, maybe more of like life and death. And like it's so interesting that sort of he's asking like again sort of this like that he's asking this in the same, he's basically asking the same question about dead people than people who aren't born yet. Like, where are they? Are they here? Are they here in boxes? Are they underneath here? Are they laying in the ground in boxes? Yeah, I don't know. I find that super fascinating.
No, I think that's a really great point. It really like shows that circularity of life. Like, where are the dead people, but where are the unborn people? Maybe there's a link here. It's quite disturbing, really. Yeah. The dead, we know they are in boxes underground. I mean, a lot of us try and forget that, but to think that the unborn are there as well, and you can really see the parallel, but it's much scarier thought. Yeah.
And then right after he's coming up with this fantasy of Hannah traveling with them to Gmunden when she wasn't born yet. And like she's traveling in the box. He says, but before that, she always traveled with us in the box. And like Hans is really getting into, this is sort of, I think, both misrecognized again by the dad and by Freud. Like, because Hans is really, like, he's really at this point trying to explain something that is very, very difficult to explain. Like, and sort of then he just gets up into all these, like he gets entangled into like weird things that don't make sense and don't match together. And like Freud is interpreting this as, well, he's making fun of the dad. I don't think that's true. I think he's just struggling to articulate what he wants to say. And the dad is always sort of questioning the wrongs in Hans's story without sort of trying to check what he's actually trying to say. So sort of this is why the next pages are really sort of confusing in general, but sort of that's because the dad isn't really asking the proper questions. And there's something here that I also like sort of Lacan tells us about. It is sort of Hans again, as he was before, like saying, oh, well, Hannah is sort of falling off the balcony. Now Hannah is sitting with the coachman and whipping the horses. And he's really flip-flopping the whole time. He says, well, she was in the back. No, actually, she wasn't in the back. She was in the front. She was hitting the horses. No, it was the coachman who was hitting the horses. Actually, it wasn't the coachman hitting the horses. And then
there was one horse. There was two horses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then here on page 57, but the second page, Hans says, oh yes, she sat up right there and called G up and whipped with her whip. G up, the whip I used to have. I'm not joking, Daddy. This is interesting, sort of what he says, like he isn't joking, like he's actually trying to say something, and then he will say, well, I'm actually joking. Well, I'm actually not joking.
Okay, actually, so I will come back to Hannah taking the reins, because obviously Lacan thinks that's important. But so in these last few pages, he has expressed many times he doesn't want mum to have another baby. There also seems to be this fear of returning to Gmunden, because I think he associates that potentially with his mum being pregnant, and maybe he thinks if we go again, she'll be pregnant again. So this keeps coming up, really don't want there to be another baby. So again, just going back to the fantasy or the dream of the unscrewed bathtub and a hole being walked into his belly. Is it actually like he thinks baths and boxes hold babies? So let me unscrew it.
Mm-hmm.
Mom, I don't want you to have the baby. Instead, I will bore it into my stomach. I'm going to be the one who has the power.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thought. It is. I think this does explain actually quite nicely why it is the bath that is getting unscrewed. Because if he's so focused about the mom not having any more babies, and if they come from sort of, if there's a fantasy of sort of there being a box or sort of, and then going into the stomach, I think sort of the drilling is more like connected to the question like how do they get in, but sort of then I think there's a nice interpretation of the bath stuff. It is literally sort of the place where the baby's coming from starting to become movable.
Yeah. And controllable.
Yeah, controllable. Exactly.
So I don't like the only thing here is talking about Lacan's interpretation. I don't know if you want to speak about anything first.
What do you mean with here?
That this is really important. Just Hannah riding on the horse and having the whip and having control of the horse. Lacan seems to place a lot of importance on this, and is like representative of Hannah, not Hans, but Hannah literally taking the reins, potentially overpowering the mother, and just having more control in this relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I didn't see it the first couple of times I read it, but I do see this interpretation now. And I hope we will get there, but there's a point where Hans where Dad asks, who is actually the one you want to whip? Hannah, me, or mommy? And he says mommy. So this really goes towards Lacan's point of like,
Yes, yeah, I remember this part. The father instead thinks he's kind of repressing, and really he wants to attack the father. Don't know what Freud thinks, but no, I think it is the mother. I think so. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the horse takes up a lot of different meanings, but sort of one of them definitely is mother. I think another one is, of course, Hans. Maybe there's also dad. But
Or as Lacan says, a replacement for dad. I can't fear my dad, so instead I will fear the horse. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's here on page 58, I think is interesting. In again, sort of, well, not again. This is a different. I'm going to read it. Hans says, the stork came up the stairs, up to the landing, and then he knocked, and everybody was asleep, and he had the right key, and unlocked the door and put Hannah in your bed, that is the dad's bed. And mommy was asleep. Now the stork put her in her bed. It was in the middle of the night, and then the stork put her in the bed very quietly. He didn't trample about at all, and he took his hat and went away again. Now he didn't got a hat. And then the dad asks, who took his hat? The doctor, perhaps? So very interesting scene of, again, Hans grappling with something. What are the things that he's grappling with? First of all, who does this baby belong to? Which he will articulate later on. Is it daddy or is it mommy? And then sort of the hat thing.
Whose bed? Yeah, whose bed?
Yeah, whose bed?
Yeah.
Whose bed? And then sort of the doctor thing is, I think, a very nice interpretation by the dad, like with the hat, because what did the doctor carry in the beginning? A bag. And like Hans is asking, like, what is that? A bag. Like, maybe somebody brought the baby, maybe.
Yeah. Yes, I definitely think well, it's an option, right?
Yeah, it's an option. It's not the explanation, but sort of it fits into what Hans is asking. Like, doesn't really matter if it's a stork or a doctor who brings the baby, but sort of this is sort of where I think it is relevant. Then on the next page, what are they talking about? They're talking about Hannah screaming, that she's making such a row with her screaming.
It's interesting that it's that word again, making such a
row. Yeah, I was trying to interpret that. I'm not sure what to make of it.
So the horse makes a loud noise and he falls. The toilet makes a loud noise. Hannah makes a loud noise. Yeah, I think it's just similar to the fool. Yeah, the same things that fall make a loud noise. It's distressing.
Oh, this is good. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Hannah. Yeah, he wants Hannah to fall, and therefore she makes noise loud. Yeah, she makes a row. That makes perfect sense. That's very good. Yeah, the horse. Yeah, hit the hoof. Oh no, Fritzl hit the hoof and sort of bled. And yeah, no, that makes sense. Things that are loud fall. Yeah, then the dad asks, if you'd rather she weren't alive, you can't be fond of her at all. Anne says, well, and then the dad says, that was why you thought when mommy was giving her bath, if only she'd let go, Anna would fall into the water, and Hans completes, and die. So this is so interesting because, again, like sort of what's connected here? It is being flushed away, falling is equal to dying.
Yeah.
Like being flushed away in the bath, or falling in the bath rather, is equal to dying. This also now makes sense why he sort of previously said, well, are there people here underneath the streets?
Yeah, to me, I think it's still more relevant, like this, what it symbols psychologically, this like being overwhelmed, overtaken, taken away rather than actually dying. But I think the analogy of dying shows how strong this emotion is, you know, it's equivalent to dying. This complete change in your world.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, and then the dad says, and then you'd be alone with mummy. A good boy doesn't wish that sort of thing, though. And Hans says, but he may think it.
Yeah.
And the
This
dad
is
says, but that isn't good. And Hans says, if he thinks it, it is good all the same because you can write it to the professor.
I really I love this. And Freud loves it too. And like this is so good because it's such a dig at the dad. You know, it's like, well, okay, I am thinking it. You don't agree with it. Like, okay, like let's write the doctor. He will know. He will take it actually serious. He will get it. Like,
Yeah, I mean, they've just had, no, yeah, this whole day they've had a lot of conversations. I like what you said about the dad asking about the wrong things. Like, you know, if Hans says something inconsistent that can't happen in reality, the dad is focusing on this instead of stepping out, seeing the themes and trying to help Hans through. Yeah, I more so than the dad normally does. He's just getting confused, like, but there's two horses. How can there be one horse?
yeah.
And so yeah, I think at the end is true. Like again, this upholds Lacan's view that Freud is the symbolic father. Okay, just write to Freud. He'll get it. You don't get it. You're not talking to me today. Yeah. Like I'm trying to tell you my thoughts. I think it. And we've just kind of got lost today.
Yeah. It's also interesting that sort of this is the same logic that Hans used like way back in the beginning, where he said like wanting is not doing and doing is not wanting. And here basically says thinking is not wishing and wishing is not thinking.
Yes. Yeah. 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 I know. He's so clever. Yeah. Yeah. What was it? Wishing is not.
Wishing's not thinking, and thinking's not wishing. I mean, this is a bit of a cop out. The other one makes more sense, but sort of this is what he's saying. Like, well, I am thinking it. You know, it is like, it is. He's really sort of standing up to the dad here in this situation.
Yeah.
Because he could also say like, oh no, I'm such a bad boy. I don't actually think it. And he's like, no, I do think it. I'm not wishing it, but you know, I'm thinking it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he says like, oh, I'm very fond of Hannah. In the autumn when she's big, I shall go to her to the Stadtpark quite alone and explain everything to her. This is to me quite interesting because again, we now see a lot of phrases that Hans sort of established before being picked up again, or explanations being picked up again. And what do you see here? Stadtpark is where Stadtpark is where he goes with his mom, quite alone. And like now sort of there's a switch in the relation, right? Sort of he's going with Hannah to the Stadtpark quite alone and like explaining things to her.
This is great because I didn't realize that the Stadtpark is where he went with his mum, but I still thought this sentence was reminiscent of like Hans taking control. How? By being the mother, because Lacan says the solution is Hans taking up this more maternal position, which I agree with. Although then when I start thinking, okay, but what is the paternal position? I get confused. So we can talk about that when we get to the solution. But still, it's interesting that he's taking the maternal position. And it's interesting that he's saying, I'm going to explain everything to her. It's a little bit sad because he still doesn't understand everything. And I think it's a wish as well. Like, Dad, please explain everything to me. You're not going to do it for Hannah. I'm going to do it for Hannah because you haven't done it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, and then I guess the relevant part is where did this idea of the stalk come from? So where should we start reading from here? Like, so Hans, all the same, she'd been alive a long time, even before she was here. When she was with the stork, she was still alive. The dad, no, perhaps she wasn't with the stork after all. Hans, who brought her then? The stork had got her. The dad, where did he bring her from then? Hans, oh, from him. Where had he got her then? That's the dad. Hans, in the box, in the stork box. This is very frustrating. I wish the dad would just tell him. The dad, well, what does the box look like? Hans, red, painted red. The dad, who told you that? Hans, mummy, I thought it to myself, it's in the book. And the dad says, in what book? And Hans brings this picture book, which has a picture of the stork's nest with storks on a red chimney, which I guess Hans has interpreted as the box.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I guess this is where the like box comes from, and I guess is like the sliding of the signifier with the horse carts. And it says also on the picture, there's a picture of a horse being shod.
Yeah, I think sort of this is, I mean, I would like to hear interpretation on it, but to me, we have sort of just the theme of, well, Hannah must have been alive when she was sort of brought into the stomach. And sort of the chimney to me is insofar an interesting picture as it has this overinterpretation. I don't know what to really take out of this, but sort of a chimney is a box with a top entrance and a bottom entrance.
True, that is true. Yeah, that is true. Most boxes only have one. So that's nice, yeah. So like more reminiscent of the like eating a baby and shitting a baby, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like on the same, no, on page 61, I think there's the dad questioning like how did the stork bring the baby, and Hans, well, I was asleep. A stork can never bring little girls or little boys in the morning, and the dad says he can't. A stork can't do it. Do you know why? So that people shan't see. And then at once in the morning, there's a little girl there. This is so interesting because sort of this is basically like his experience, right? He didn't see what's going on. And like I don't know, this again, maybe an overinterpretation, but sort of the stork is as unseeable as the mother's phallus is unseeable. Like in the sense that Hans knows, well, there's no stork, but sort of he's still questioning like the question for him, like what, yeah, sort of where do babies come from, sort of is still there.
Yeah. So. I also think even going back a little bit more, like the basic question of sex, and Lacan says that Lacan thinks Hans has never seen his parents have sex, even though he has been in the room with them because they're probably having a terrible marriage. But still, yeah, like I think many children pick up on this as well. The thing you can't see, the thing you can't understand, you know something really important is happening. So yeah, the sex, there's like the maternal phallus. Yeah, there's a lot going on and he's not seen any of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you wanna like throw something in.
If you wanna
throw something in, something you noticed or whatever.
No, I have nothing now.
Okay, so then what's progressing is Hans basically saying, well, Hannah was with us, sort of she traveled with us. She traveled sort of in a box. Yeah, him sort of just like tip-tapping, sort of telling his dad, well, she was, Hannah and I drove quite by ourselves. Then he also says, well, actually, like people can see the stork. And then at some point, Hans says, this is on page 64, I say what I'm saying to you isn't a bit true. And then the dad asks, what is? And Hans says, none of it. I say, let's put Hannah and me in the box and I'll whittle into the box. I just whittle into my knickers. I don't care a bit. There's nothing at all shameful in it. I say, this isn't a joke, but it's great fun though. So I think this sort of it isn't a joke, but it's great fun. Sort of is sort of interesting, and sort of Hans both saying, well, what I'm saying isn't true. I know it isn't true, but sort of it's still not a joke. I'm not joking here. Like I'm not joking around. Like I'm trying to understand something. And then I don't know if this is interesting, relevant, but sort of he's saying, well, Hannah and me are in the box, and I whittle into the box. I whittle into my knickers. Like, yeah. So again, sort of this question of like, well, this box, okay, now it's not only Hannah in it, but also him in it. So the question also like, where was I before I sort of was here? And what does he do in the box when he's in it? He whittles. That sort of struck me. I don't know how to interpret it, but sort of that seems just interesting to me, that sort of this is what he would sort of, always like, when you can do everything, what do you do? And sort of Hans always says as well, when I come back sort of from breakfast with Marinde, what I will do is like, I will go poop and drink coffee with you. And here it is, well, when I'm in the box and I could do everything in the box, I'll whittle into the box. I don't know what that means for him, but sort of, yeah.
I think there's so much going on here. Like, so he's like, I say, let's do this. Like, this is him trying to take control. I say, let's do this. Let's put me and Hannah into the box. Like, I'm doing it. I don't know if it's like, let us escape, go back to where we came from. I'm not sure. And then I'll whittle into the box. Again, yeah, I do think it is like him asserting some kind of power. I don't know if it is related at all to him thinking this is how I'll have a baby. I don't know. How do the babies get there? Maybe someone whittles into the box. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all a bit of a mess. And then there's nothing shameful in it. To me, I do think I want to bring it back a little bit to, children have to navigate so much shame. And also I think it doesn't help that they don't know what's happening. So they know that there's this thing called sex, that there is shame surrounding it, that it's something you don't see. They don't know what it is, but they feel shame. And maybe he's just trying to also say to his dad, like, there's no shame in it. Like, please tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, just had this whole narrative. And I think he's just trying to finish off by like empowering himself a little bit.
Yeah, this is really what's going on. He's really trying to sort of empower himself, like get some, like all of sort of these things that he's afraid of are things that are uncontrollable. Or all maybe not only afraid of, but just like say struggling with. Yeah. So just like when he has to whittle, and he wants to play, but he has to whittle, and like he then just sort of gets angry, and sort of, that's just something, another things that sort of he's not in control of. And he also sees sort of maybe probably that sort of other people are also, well, it's also the question about sort of the lack and the other. Yeah. And then on April 17th, sort of Hans told the dad that he was teasing horses, and the dad asked sort of, how often do you tease horses? And then he asked, do you like teasing them? And Hans says, oh yes, very much. And then the dad asked, would you like to whip him? And Hans is like, yes, I would like to whip him. Sort of as he was talking about, and then he says, well, he sort of makes up this, he just says it like, obviously this didn't happen, but he says, once I had the whip and whipped the horse and it fell down, I made a rope with his feet. So that's interesting again, sort of, as you sort of said before, like this is really a fantasy of sort of taking control, right? It's like, I'm so afraid of the horse making a rope with its feet, the horse falling down. What is going on now? I'm whipping it. I'm whipping it, and it's going to fall down and making a row. Like, I'm not sort of just I'm not the one just experiencing this, but causing this.
For sure. Like, I think maybe it's the word tease here. He defines it as when you're cross with them and you say G up. This scary thing he's seen coachmen do on the street. But I think the word for me, tease, it does make me think of like the frustration between mother and child that Lacan was talking about. Like you are almost teased by your mother in this game, and then you fall from this position. And yeah, I think now he is imagining himself instead in the position of power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then sort of on page 67, then really sort of it is that eventually asking, which would you like to really beat, Mommy, Hannah, or me? And Han says Mommy, and Dad says, why? I should just like to beat her. And then the dad, when did you ever see anyone beating the mom? And then blah, 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 whatever. I've never seen anyone do it, never in my life. And then he says, with a carpet beater. Again, sort of, this is interesting because it's reverse. His mother usually threatens him to beat him with the carpet beater. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes complete sense. Just a complete reversal. Yeah.
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 In the streets, Hans explained to me that buses, furniture vans, coal carts were stock box carts. So here we have now fully articulated sort of the connection of the transportation complex with the stork box, and sort of you can really now sort of get a better grasp on what it was that sort of Hans was afraid before, when he was afraid of the carts. And it is sort of maybe like both being, I guess, sort of a certain is as sort of, I think it's not correct sort of what Lacan is saying us, but sort of metaphorically it is correct. Sort of Lacan tells us Hans had this experience of his whole house being moved. And I think sort of this is sort of a relevant experience, sort of the whole signifying system, or the whole world you are experienced to sort of just like moving, vanishing, disappearing. And I think sort of this is really sort of what's going on here, like sort of Hans being, very scared of sort of losing the little access to the symbolic. It's not that little, but like the very young access to the symbolic that he has, and sort of being very, like, really trying to question what is the ground for the symbolic? Why can it not just disappear again? Like a shit in the toilet, I in the bath, or people that come from boxes and go to boxes.
I really like that, like if you are instating the symbolic, it's like this new dimension you're building, you're not going to be sure that it holds at the start. So it makes complete sense that you would question it until you find some security in that. I think it's a nice way of framing it.
This is what Lacan tells us in Seminar 8, the little thing that I sent you once.
Okay. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I remember. Yeah. Cool. Should we leave it there?
I would.
Yeah.
Did you read further?
I did. But I think we'll save it, yeah?
Yeah, no, let's say